Too many people are ignoring our public health guidelines, and in so doing, they endanger the health of others, particularly the most vulnerable. So, today we are moving from asking people to act responsibly to instead using the full force of the law to legally that require that people act responsibly to protect public health. Through amendments to the procedures regulation under the Provincial Offences Procedures Act, community peace officers, in addition to police, will now be able to issue tickets to enforce COVID-19 public health orders.
Naheed Nenshi is the mayor of Calgary. He joins me from that city. Don Iveson is the mayor of Edmonton and the chair of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Big City Mayors Caucus. He's in Edmonton. Of course, hi to both of you. Thanks for making time for us.
Thanks for having us.
Before I get into the economic announcement and sort of the need in both of your cities for that help, Mayor Nenshi, I want to start off with what we just heard from Premier Kenney, and that is the invocation, basically, of penalties for people who are not complying with the orders when it comes to, for example, social distancing or certain businesses that have been closed. Are you in support of that announcement from the province, and how do you think it might apply to your community?
100% in support. It was the right thing to do. It dovetails with what Minister Hajdu said earlier today. Look, the vast majority of people are looking after themselves and others, and they're following the orders. And that's really what we have to urge people to do. But it's helpful to have these teeth in the background for the small minority who are breaking the rules. But I want to be and it's helpful to have our community peace officers involved in that enforcement. But I want to be clear. Nobody is invincible. You are not invincible. You are not as fit as Idris Elba, and he has it. You are not as fit as the South African gold medalist swimmer, who is very, very ill with it right now. But more important than that, these restrictions are actually not to help you. They're to help everyone else. Imagine how you would feel if you have no symptoms, but you're passing it on, and you pass it on to your elderly neighbor, or you pass it on to your 90-year-old grandmother. This is precisely why we need everyone to follow these rules. And yes, it's great to have the enforcement. It's the right thing to do, but we have to rely on every single person to do the right thing as well.
Mayor Iveson, your take on the measure, and how might it work in Edmonton?
Well, we've appreciated that the province has been very proactive on enforcement measures and encouragement for people to do the right thing. And Dr. Hinshaw, medical officer of health, has been very, very compelling in her calm appeals to people's reason. However, for people who don't get it, clearly there need to be stiffer penalties. And we've had a conversation with the Premier as part of our regular communication about the opportunity for cities to be part of that enforcement and to give us stronger tools, and also the opportunity to deploy our peace officers in order to be part of an integrated and a cross-government solution to enforcing social distancing so that we can help prevent the spread of this virus and make sure that our essential services, first responders, and healthcare system aren't overwhelmed. So we support the measures as well. And we've appreciated where the government of Alberta has reached out to try to coordinate these things to make sure that they're practically implementable on the ground.
Yeah, can I quickly just follow up with you, Mayor Iveson, on that? Just for Edmontonians who are watching right now, how might they expect, how much enforcement will there be?
Well, we've had our community peace officers out looking at mass gatherings in parks. We've had some challenges with the weather getting warmer here now that it's finally spring, with people getting out and not maintaining the distancing that we need. So we've had to take measures like close playgrounds, for example, because it's just too many people and we can't sanitize the equipment. So we're using, we're using our peace officers for that enforcement, and then our police officers are also part of maintaining order in the city here because we're under a state of local emergency. So they've all been given extra powers to support the enforcement of the distancing requirements that have come down as provincial health orders.
Mayor Nenshi, same quick question for you for Calgarians watching. What should they expect as far as enforcement goes?
Yeah, exactly the same answer, except I disagree with Mayor Iveson on one thing. He's lived in Alberta long enough to know this is not spring. This is Calgary's fifth false spring. More things will happen going forward, but exactly the same answer. I'm very pleased because there has been some confusion in these emergency orders on who has the right to enforce. And I'm very pleased that our community peace officers, who do great work every single day of the year, will now be able to actually have some teeth to back them up when they go and break up these gatherings and so on.
Okay, let me switch.
And frankly, there aren't very many of them. There really are not. People are being good. But I really want to highlight that, right? Which is one of the things I've been saying, Dr. Hinshaw, like on my shirt, has been saying, is go outside, get some fresh air and exercise, but be really smart while you're doing it. Leave 6 feet between yourself and others. Don't touch anything. Try to walk close to your home and wash your hands and change your clothes when you get home. And these are the sorts of things the vast majority of people are abiding by, but we needed the tools to go after those that are not, because ultimately one rotten apple ruins the whole bunch and the virus can spread.
I do want to ask both of you about the financial aid package offered today, or formally, I guess, put into place today by the federal government. I should tell our viewers, though, Mayor Nenshi, when you refer to your shirt, you're talking about Dr. Dina Hinshaw, who, of course, they'll be familiar with. She is the Chief Medical Officer for the province of Alberta, who keeps giving those updates every day and is in charge of the public health response in the province. Very cool shirt.
And is super awesome, as all the medical officers
they
of health
sure are.
Being amazing, articulate, powerful women, and I love it.
Mayor Iveson, let me ask you quickly about the economic aid package. $52 billion in direct aid, a promise of this being phase one. If you were to identify where the need exists for phase two, what would you say?
Well, I think a lot of the measures that have been announced, which we support, and they're unprecedented, match a lot of the traditional measures that we've been calling for to combat poverty and in communities that have been struggling historically. But now that that need is so widespread and has hit really the middle class, as it were, these widespread measures for income support are now being put in place. And Mayor Nenshi and I are both longtime advocates of a basic income, which is basically what's coming into place for households to be able to get through this and provide for their daily needs. So I'm supportive of the approach because it means there's liquidity. People can pay their rent, pay their bills, at least keep groceries coming amidst the other relief measures that are out there with delays for mortgage payments and utility payments. We're working on property tax deferrals. However, I think phase two is going to be looking at the pain points that remain in the broader economic system. And one of those will be municipalities ourselves. We kind of run from one year to the next, money in, money out. We can't really run deficits. We only borrow for infrastructure. And yet our cash flow is going to be significantly impaired by the relief efforts we're trying to provide to property taxpayers and the extraordinary costs we're bearing on the ground responding to this crisis. So one of the phase two considerations will have to be liquidity for all municipalities of all sizes who are a part of the public sector and public service solution to this crisis.
Mayor Nenshi, I see you nodding as Mayor Iveson is talking. What would you identify as some of the sort of key points of where phase two should focus?
Yeah, Don is exactly right. Phase one has to be about aid to vulnerable people and the agencies and organizations that help them. Right now, my number one priority, as probably every mayor, is making sure that we are keeping our homeless population safe. You know, people who can't wash their hands, don't have access to a sink, who sometimes sleep shoulder to shoulder on cots in the shelter. We do not want transmission in those populations. We have to make sure people have the money to put food on the table and pay the rent. So that's step one. The other orders of government are doing a great job, as far as I'm concerned, on helping people with that stability and that kind of income support. Stage two, as Don says, is about helping municipalities deliver the services we need. These states of emergency are very expensive, and unlike the other orders of government, we have to balance our books by year end. So we really need the other orders of government to help us out with financial backstops, with legislative changes to ensure that we can keep doing what we need to do, and also put money into people's pockets. You know, those property tax bills are due in June, and it would be great to be able to get that off of people's concerns, at least for now. But we also need to be thinking about the economic recovery and how we hit the ground running when we see the other end of this, whether that's months away or hopefully not longer. And so that means we have to start thinking about the tools we have around stimulus, around stimulative infrastructure spending. Cities have really proven that they can build stuff quickly and get people to work quickly. And specifically for Alberta, we've been hit by a triple whammy. The public health crisis, the global recession brought on by it, and the ridiculousness of the Saudi-Russia price war on oil. So we're being hit harder than anyone else. Calgary already had the highest unemployment rate in the country. So it's going to be very hard for us to recover, and we need to start now thinking about what are the economic shock absorbers and the economic diversification that we need to put in place so that we're better prepared in the future.
Mayor Iveson, last question to you. When it comes to that ask, I saw you sort of saying please when Mayor Nenshi was talking about backstopping municipalities and their need. I only have about 45 seconds, but have you had conversations? I know every level of government is dealing with a lot right now, but have those conversations begun? Do you have any reassurances from the province, for example, that those backstops might be made available?
Well, let me just say there's been unprecedented openness and communication, both with provincial leaders as well as with the federal government. The mayors have chatted with the Deputy Prime Minister last week. We're chatting with her again this week. And these relief measures for us are a big part of the conversation. So no promises yet, but I think the federal government understands the need, and it may be of the scale that only the federal government can respond if some provinces are truly struggling with the health crisis. So we may need a different constitutional division of labor than we're used to here. But don't waste a good crisis to retune the country to be able to support cities in the everyday work that we do to build better lives for people.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, and it sounds like one of you has an email anyway. So thanks very much for your time, both of you. I appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you both again soon. Thanks to Mayor Naheed Nenshi and Mayor Don Iveson. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.